to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Well, listeners, again, welcome back to what I would say kind of like part two with Pankaj Singh. And, in our previous interview, we were speaking about his book, Circle Up. Would you hold that book up again, Singh? Because I think that's, so we make the connection here. Here it is. The book's out. You can get it off of Kindle for free. And the cool thing about it is we want to tell you about how we help you if you felt overwhelmed or challenged by what we were talking about before. The book intention wasn't to confuse you. I think more importantly, to bubble up all of these things inside of you, and then for you now to decide what the next step might be. So, Singh, good day to you. Thanks for being on. You and I have both the same shirt on and the same jacket on, so people know this isn't a different day. We're doing this at the same time. You know, look, this you offered me as part of this interview, and I want to tell people that to take this purpose factor assessment. And I want to tell you, for my listeners, I used to teach a course for years on purpose, and I never found anything, there you go, Leaders Love Purpose, as comprehensive as this. Now, this particular assessment, you do it online, and then it gives you back a PDF. And the most important thing here is that this was not Singh's invention. This was invented by, I'm going to give credit to Brian and Gabe Bosch. And it's a great program. And I think the difference is that Singh interprets it for you. It's about 28 pages long. So when you get it back, it's like, hey, this is quite a report. But let's start off with your Inner Compass Journey program. Because the reality is you're not just out here lollygagging in this. You're really serious about it. And so let's start with the core problems you're solving. And I think that's for the people who've read the book now. You promise to help people eliminate burnout and alleviate and elevate fulfillment. So what, look, you've coached hundreds of people. What patterns do you see in high-performing professionals that lead you to create this specific solution? Now, I do remember telling you that the many times I've had Marshall Goldsmith on this call, all he coaches is high-performing people. And he tells me all along, so I know you're ready for this, and I know you know what I'm going to say. He said, when is enough, right? He said, look, you got 10 cars, you got a 22,000 square foot house, you have degrees up the wazoo, you have 5 or 6 successful companies, and you still can't stop, right? Meaning, I don't mean stop, but you never, there's never enough of anything. So tell us how you would approach that, because I think for somebody like him, like you, who've coached all these very high achieving people, you got to see this common pattern.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So what I have noticed is most of the professionals, they seem to have their life all together on paper, right? You mentioned something before I started. Successful careers, impressive lifestyles, impressive titles, very comfortable, living and everything. But behind the scene, the story is very different. They're exhausted, they are stressed, they are disconnected. They chase goals set by others, right? By the board, by the society, by family expectation, industry pressure. But over time, this leads to a feeling of emptiness, right? Even when you have high achieving targets, you said it's like climbing to the top of the ladder. It's leaning against the wrong wall.
Right.
So I created Inner Compass Journey to solve that problem. The program helps leaders reconnect 3 critical pieces: their true identity, who they really are, their purpose, what genuinely drives them, and their actions, how they show up professionally. Because the self-help, I always say this jokingly with my clients, right? The self-help industry is a billion-dollar industry because everybody buys book and nobody reads it, number one. Number two, there is very limited program that actually tells you, okay, I understand you told me my problem, how I solve it, how I get there. So the inner compass journey, and I just want to clarify, the journey itself is 12 weeks for individuals, or I also do for groups and teams and organizations. There is a community that we create, white label in a corporate setting or otherwise. Even after 12 weeks, it's not like wash your hand, 12 weeks gone. No, there's a support structure for the entire year, 2 year, whatever, however you want to grow. So every person has a different lifestyle, and we have accommodated all those different pieces in here.
Do you, think that, I mean, have you been doing this? So the question is, are these cohort groups? I call them cohort groups because
Cohort groups, yeah.
you see them sticking together. Like I went to a school and got a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and we had a cohort group. And to this day, and I've been graduated for a long time, I'm still in touch with the same people that were in my cohort group.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you find that happening. Those are actually part of
Mhm.
my inner circle, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. So remember what the word says, right? Inner compass journey.
mhm.
It is a journey. It's
Sure.
not.
Okay.
It's not a instant.
Not a destination.
Right. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Right. You need to decide how long you want to get this support, and the community is always open for them. So I still have, I think the folks I started coaching almost a year back, I mean, they have gone to the whole through the 12 weeks, but once in a while they will join the office hours,
Okay.
and with specific problem, right? And come and say, hey, Singh, I'm facing this. Do you have any advice? Or, and again, it's not just me. If you get like-minded people who have common language that you get through a program, it's easier for you to have that interaction because you all understand that common language.
I think that's important. It's really important because when we went to the university and formed our cohort groups in spiritual psychology, we had a common language.
Mhm.
We knew what we were all speaking about. So this inner compass journey, it's built around aligning and aligning identity,
Mhm.
purpose, and professional action, right? I
Right.
think that last one's important. A lot of people listening are professionals. Can you paint a picture for the listeners of what life would look like when these three elements are one out of sync first, and then when they're more perfectly aligned? Because your role is to create alignment. And I'm not saying, I don't want to say in a perfect world,
Mm.
they are aligned. Okay. Um, but most of the time we're not living quite in a perfect world, but you'd like to get it there. I mean, it would be great. But tell us where you think it is when somebody's really out of alignment, like the car bumping down the street, and then you
Mhm.
take it in for alignment, and then you go, oh, wow, my car is really driving a lot better now.
So let's think about this together, right? So when your identity, your purpose, and your professional actions are not aligned, right? Life is nothing but constantly juggling different problems and situations, right? Always busy, but never satisfied.
Mhm.
Maybe you are climbing ladder at work. Maybe you are making money, revenue, everything else. Y- I always say, just because you're ticking all the boxes of success, but deep down, something does not feel right,
Mhm.
right? You're tired, you're stressed, and often you ask yourself, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Right? Now ponder on this. Imagine waking up energized and clear about your day. Your work will feel more meaningful because it matches genuinely to who you are and matters what you do,
Yes.
right? So decisions come naturally without second guessing. You're motivated from inside, no more forcing or pushing yourself through the day, right? So fulfillment isn't something you chase. It is simply how you live every day. That's the power of alignment.
It is the DNA that you are trying to build with inside of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Let's face it. And one of the kickoffs to that is truly the purpose factor assessment.
Yes.
And I can't say enough about it because you have to experience it. Please go to Singh's website and then do the coaching with him afterwards, because the reality is the assessment by itself, while it's an eye opener, and you can read through it, you don't quite always understand it. And that's why he's been certified. He had his hat there a minute ago. He's a certified instructor for this to take you through it, because you
Yes.
really do. You really do need that. Leaders love purpose. Now, look, this framework and methodology of your course. I noticed there's several unique frameworks like heart, compass circle, and breathe. BREATH. Can you walk us through one of these, and let's say heart framework, and give us a real example of how it transformed somebody's relationships with past adversity? You and I talked about this ACE test that Dr. Brian Allman has.
Mhm.
If you take this test, what you really realize is that these things that happened to you in childhood have a tendency to elevate themselves and come about, right? So adverse childhood experiences is what it stands for. So let's talk about that heart framework.
Sure. So before I go in there, just to uh, add one thing, the whole 12-week program that we have, there are multiple frameworks that we share. And one of the things I've just done, and it's not live yet, it should be live in next couple of days. 4 decades of experience that I have in mindful practice, teaching, preaching, learning, everything. I have created a chat GPT bot that I'm going to launch here in next couple of days. I'm revamping the website in next couple of days, so it's going to be there. What it does is you just go in there and type one emotion. It starts giving you information about what that emotion really stands for. And the goal is to give you 2 minutes micro exercise that you can take over that.
And
It's a chatbot
when is that going to be available?
in next couple of days.
Yeah, that's a
It's
phenomenal
already
use of AI.
right. It's already out there, and it is trained on more than a terabyte of information data I have in my computers. So it's very professionally trained. Now going to heart. So what we have done is, my point was, we have created 250 different micro practices for different situations that people can have, right? So heart is one of them, and heart stands for harmonize, examine, align, respond, and track, right? It's a very simple but very powerful process when you have a tough experience and you need clarity and compassion, right? So the way it works is, harmonizing is nothing but taking a moment to pause and regulate your nervous system, right? Simple 4 box breathing, right? Try to get control of yourself, harmonize with the universe, right? Your breath is something very important. Then examine. Examine is noticing the emotions or the stories that's showing up in your head. Now, key thing in everything that I do is, in the moment you talk about mindful means two simple things. Take a deep breath and start feeling your breath and become an observer, not a judge, not somebody to fix. It is only to observe. So examine is noticing that emotions or stories that's showing up in your head without judgment. Then the next one is align, where we connect with our values and ask, what really matters to me here? And if somebody takes purpose assessment, it's not only that we are giving them what frustrates and fulfills them, we also call out what are the specific values in their life, right? And 99% it's very accurate assessment. So once you understand and connect that thought in your head with your values, then you respond, choosing your next step with intention. So now you're not just reacting to the situation, right? And that's why and then you track, reflecting over time to see how you are growing, what's changing. So if you're going through a tough situation, it's a very good tool or framework that people can. Well, I mean, one participant came into the program stuck in his past job loss, right? And they were thinking as a personal failure and was carrying shame, right? Um, but when he applied the heart framework, he was able to step back and look through the new lens And instead of seeing it as a end of road, they saw that moment forced them to reassess what they really were doing in their life.
Give them new perspective.
Exactly. So that shift turned regret and shame into resilience, right? And I mean, he's in a role that he's loving it. It's aligned with his value. It's almost paying him double what he was getting paid earlier. And this is another example. I think in the first episode, I talked about people on autopilot. A lot of leaders, it's a frog story, right? At the boiling water, you have the frog, you slowly warm the water. Frog does not know how bad that water is,
Right.
right? Till you take it and put it in the fresh water. That's happening with us. That's happening with us every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you've noticed, I'm sure, as you you find people who want to go through this coaching, is there's a there's a fog around them, right? They
Mhm.
can't see things clearly. You're actually helping people create clarity of purpose. And I want to get to that because, you know, organizing, in week 3, you're focusing on organizing energy and rules around purpose. Okay.
Mhm.
When somebody clearly defines their purpose, when I came out of my own courses, I said I exist to serve, to inspire passion. And I've known that for a long time. And to me, that's moving people from out of the dark and clarity into the light, right? My whole role, all these podcasts, everything I do, when I look at what I do, my consulting work, it's all about that. So, in this week three, using Compass Circle tool, it sounds like it might be addressing this would overwhelm many leaders feel. How does this tool help someone say no to good opportunities that aren't aligned? Because opportunists, people that are in business, they're kind of looking for opportunities all the time. They're curious. Most of them are ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it. They're all over the place. And the reality is, we need to learn how to say no because no creates clarity.
So week 3, I think in the first episode we talked about the circle of book. So I'm not going to get into details of that, except saying that the compass circle helps people map out the key relationships, right, in their life based on the roles that they play. Where it gets powerful is as people journal the compass roles, they more than often realize that they are surrounded by well-meaning people pulling them in every direction,
Mhm.
but not necessarily in the direction of their purpose.
Right.
Right? So we guide them through simple micro journaling prompt for each role, like who helps me see clearly when I'm overwhelmed? But that's your clarity partner. Who pushes me towards opportunities that align with my deep goals? Now, by the end of this process, you can literally see on a piece of paper where your energy is going and whether it supports or distracts you from your purpose. And
Well,
that is when,
I just want to
yeah.
say one thing because you gave us your slides. And so, everybody watching this on YouTube, we're actually going to have some slides that will be utilized for you to better understand because a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we'll show you the compass model. We'll have these slides slide in here at this particular point. So I want my listeners and viewers to understand that if you're listening to it, no. But if you're watching this on YouTube, yes, you're going to see it. So go ahead, finish.
So by end of this process, like I said, once you have that clarity, that's where the true shift happens. And I mean, it is so fulfilling for me. This exercise is so fulfilling for me. I mean, people come, go through this process. Oh my God. One lady told me the process gave her the language and confidence to say no,
Mm.
right? Because it was off track with her purpose and none of her compass roles pointed towards it, right?
Well, I mean, look, you in this course, people are going to get what they need to get to create clarity and to make this part of their DNA, right? And I thought there was something in this course that you used several times, and you called it the flywheel habit
Habit
builder.
builder. Yeah.
Yeah. It appears twice in the
Mhm.
curriculum. Um, what makes this different from typical habit formation approaches? Look, we've had uh, the guy from Stanford on here that talked
Mhm.
about habits, wrote the huge book, Tiny Habits is what it was called. It's the formation of smaller habits and building it into bigger things and so on. Why do you prototype it twice during this journey?
That's a great question. So many habit tools that's out there focus on building routines
Right.
around productivity and performance,
Mhm.
right? First of all, flywheel habit builder is not about cramping more into your day. It's about creating habits that are actually aligned with who you are and where you are going. So the reason we use it twice, the first time we use it early on is when people are just starting to get clarity on their purpose and patterns, right?
Mhm.
So it helps them to create a baseline of what's working, what's not working, and what they want to start shifting, right? But the thing is, by week 8 or 9, they have usually learned a lot about themselves, unpacked a lot of things that they did not wanted to unpack before, right? Um, some realize they love what they do and they just want to do better, and others realize that no, I don't like to do this, I have to do something else. And that's where the second session of Flywheel Habit Builder is to give them a chance to take a fresh look with deeper self awareness and either double down on what's aligned or reset completely.
I
And
get what you say is I remember as you're speaking about BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits, right? And he did say something very similar to what you're saying, and that is that you want not so much, but stuff that you like to do. And if you don't like it, you're never going to do it. Right? So you can't force somebody into saying, "Hey, we'll go to the gym and lift weights." And the person says, "I hate lifting weights." You should say, "Well, then great. Do you like to ride a bike? Do you like to swim? Do you like to do something else?" And that was part of, I think, a major part of his findings in all the studies was people were misaligned, right?
Mm.
And that's what you're saying too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. Uh, when people come into the course, like I said, the very first, let me step back here. For simplicity's sake, where this whole program started was the framework called Progress, which is in my first book. And Progress stands for purpose, reflection, organizing, and then grit resilience, empowerment, self support, and self improvement. Now, the last piece, grit resilience, and all those things are how you go about in your life. But it starts with having a clear purpose. That's where um, my hats off and kudos to the Purpose Company. Both Gab and Brian are my mentors, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was about to launch this program called Progress, and I had just like you've seen the assessments that I've created in the book and other frameworks. I had something similar to start with purpose. Then I took it out from there because last year when I was about to launch the program, that night as I lied down in the bed and opened my iPad scrolling, the very first thing I saw on Facebook was an ad from Brian speaking on it about purpose, right? So I paused my launch that Saturday. I took the course, and at that time, the online assessment was not there. So you had to go through this book. There's a digital version of this, and every chapter helped, and the chapters help you define your purpose in those four categories that you have seen. But I had to do this with pen and paper. Uh, And once I did that, that clarity, I was okay, this is already there. I mean, it's completely aligned with me. After I took the course, I spoke with the coach and I said, I need to speak with Brian. And I said, Brian, here is the thing. This is perfectly fitting into my program as the first step.
Mhm.
I need to partner with you. And that's where they said, okay, why don't you become a certified professional coach for this? So my point is the first three letters, purpose, reflection, and organizing, that covers a lot of things we discussed so far. Purpose factor assessment tells you the purpose. That 90-minute first assessment review that we do is to teach you to reflect. A lot of us have forget the art of reflecting, right? Now, if you continue with the whole 12-week program, you get to learn a lot out of it. And then we introduce to organize your life. That's where we introduce the compass circle. Do you have the right people in your life to organize your life?
It is so, so important what you're saying right now. And I think that for most of the listeners, again, this is about the course, but what we're trying to give you is little pieces so you can understand just some of the things that are included in this 12-week course. Um, you know, you talk about the origin, strength, and action. You're helping people reframe past pain into power. Uh,
Mhm.
could you share an example, and again, without breaking the confidentiality of anybody, of how this shift happens for somebody, and maybe a personal experience for you, or
Yeah, so
something that you want to use?
absolutely. And this is very important and critical. I think you mentioned early on the ACE test, right?
Yeah.
Similar to ACE test, where it's a known fact now that our experience in our childhood becomes the default mechanism of reacting to tough time. And that's where trying to understand origin strength is very important. Um, it's very powerful. And two things happens in this particular session when they take the second session. 90% of my folks I have coached towards the end of this session, they will literally take out their phone and call someone to say, hey, you need to get introduced to saying you need to take this course. It's so powerful. So one leader, so there are different archetypes there. You have already seen the test if you read it. There are different archetypes and origin strength. So one leader came in viewing their childhood in poverty as a disadvantage, right? Although he was a very successful solopreneur, he's still a good friend of mine, but something they felt ashamed of and tried to hide. And over time, they realized that growing up with less actually gave them an unmatched drive, grit, and resourcefulness.
Yeah, and it's a power.
Right. So it wasn't a flaw, it was a true fire for him, true fuel for him.
But you had him reframe it.
Exactly. And that's where this assessment and had another participant, right, uh, lost sibling at a very young age. And that grief shaped how they moved through the world. So for years, she avoided deep relationship because of the fear of losing again. A classical defense mechanism of emotional detachment,
Mhm.
right? And this happens with people who lose somebody very close, their parents, their sibling, their grandparents at early age. But through the origin strength lens, they saw that their experience gave them a very, very rare gift of presence, right?
Great
They knew
example.
how
Great
they
example.
knew how to be fully with a person in their pain. And that is because the foundation of your leadership style, building deep connections, having empathetic teams where people feel safe for each other.
Mhm.
And the third one, which my experience is that 80% people on this planet, right? And I believe it's probably because I've seen about 100,000 people already who have taken this book test, right? Not even the online test, the book test.
Yeah.
So that is called rejection, and they have discerning strength. So one client, he has been told that you're not too much. You don't belong. You most of their life, right? And whether it was school, relationship, or early career, now the defense that formed was hypervigilance,
Mm,
always scanning for cues of disapproval, constantly trying to fit in. But once they unpacked what was going beneath it, they realized their sensitivity was actually a superpower. They had incredible ability to read people and anticipate challenges.
I
Right.
totally understand this. I think people, although adversity in their life looked adverse at the time, if there's a reframing of what happened in this past, it gives them the strength to become a better person in so many different areas of their
Right.
life. I'm a perfect example of that, and I won't go into the story of it, but I do recognize my upbringing and my histogram, my history all the way back to my grandparents and my parents and everybody else. And sometimes there are patterns that repeat themselves, but that doesn't mean you need to accept them, right? What you need to do is rewire. And you can rewire with this course because in essence, that's what Singh is doing is he's working with the neural pathways in your brain to rewire so that you look at these in a different way. Will you
And that's
comment?
well, yeah. One thing I would comment, Gurdev, is, and that's the reason why I have very heavy emphasis that these shifts don't happen overnight in a closed bedroom alone,
No.
right? But once someone sees that their pain isn't a scar to hide, but a story of strength, it changes everything. That's the neo part that we have to change. That's a
Yahoo!
perspective shift.
Uh, that is the best statement around right there is when people get that aha moment like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, let's look at this because there is something that we talked about, which was saying no. And your program promises both professional and personal benefits. But I'd like you to maybe give us an example of how this inner alignment that you're creating for people translates to measurable professional results. And so look, it's somebody out there listening today from a LinkedIn source from ours.
Mhm.
And they want to use this professionally. And one of the areas that is so important is decision making. Lately, I've had Dr. Jim Lohr on here, who sold out his company to Johnson and Johnson. It was he was basically coaching high executives
Mhm.
on performance, higher performance, how to become higher, even more
Better,
performance.
yeah. Hmm.
And one of that is decision making and leadership presence. Okay. And so for someone who's listening right now, it's like, wow, I'm already burnt out. I think I'm giving my all. And the key here now becomes, making really important decisions. I think an example of this is, and it's been portrayed in the news so much lately, about a decision the current administration is, and I'm not going to use a particular name, but then he waffles and he goes back.
Hmm.
It makes a decision, oh, we're going to do a tariff. Oh, no, now we're not going to do the tariff. Or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so my point is business owners have to make decisions all the time.
Yeah.
If they're not in alignment, they're not going to make great decisions. How do you help them?
Again, it's a very fundamental, foundational question for people who have not experienced coaching or at least have not tried to get help from others. Um, the simplest way of explaining this is that we are stuck in our own ways. We are stuck with. Let me step back. Every human being has a bias based on their experience that they have collected and gathered and stored with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with humanity is we always try to play in our head what transpired, what happened, and how that happened, and we try to create an image of future based on that what happened, right?
Okay.
The problem with that is scientifically, neuroscience suggests that, and I'll give you an example right now people can listen to me and feel it. We don't remember 90% of the things that happen, the way brain works. It will register only the things that you are consciously recording.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. Again, I did this in the last session also, right? The last time you told somebody I love you, you will say, "Oh yeah, this morning I told my wife I love you." Okay, no, you don't remember it because you remember the word spoken because you are attentive only for the words you spell because it came automatically every time you leave the house. You say that. Do you remember the smell? Do you remember the air? Do you remember the breath? Do you remember what your wife was wearing? Do you remember what your wife reaction was on her face? Right? So that's a fundamental thing that we take for granted that everything that happened in the past I will remember. No, the brain does not work that way. Number one. Number two, everything that you are excuse me, everything that you are anticipating. I'm not saying planning is bad. Planning is very important. The problem with humanity is that we build I told this in another podcast. We build a palace in our head,
Mm-hmm.
no problem with that. Then we start living in it. And the moment you start living in your imaginary palace, guess what? You're going to pay rent to a psychologist.
Yeah. Well, look, we live in
So,
a world of MSU, don't we? It's we make stuff up, we believe what we made up, and then we're living that made up story. And so
so
there,
for
so it's really finding out what's true.
exactly, and when for the decisions that we make day in and day out, having knowing your purpose, knowing the values, and always testing your decisions with those values.
Yes. That's what I wanted to hear you say, because it's got to be a values alignment when you make the decision.
Exactly. Mhm.
And, it's like people who have wavering values make wavering decisions, right? And there are people that don't actually probably never even looked at their values. Okay.
And that's what I would say is more critical. It's not that they have wavering values; they don't have a specific set of values that they live by.
Well,
They
in
live by the
the purpose factor
yes.
test,
You will get that.
I'm gonna put a plug in here. You're gonna get your values after you take this. How many questions is it, by the way? I can't remember what I did.
It takes about 25 minutes and it's dynamically designed. So depending on people, if they're on autopilot, to break that autopilot, we ask questions like 5 different ways.
Yeah.
And again, there are 3 different scaling used in throughout the course intentionally. Just remember what Gab and Brian has done. They have been working through this book for 10 years, almost a decade,
Yeah.
right? And they have collected information. The people who have taken this test are Army, Navy, FBI. Everybody has taken this test. And the coding of that program that you take assessment now took more than 12,000 hours of development.
Let me tell you, I was blown away at the results. The test itself, I kind of was trying to figure out, because that's me. Where are they going with this? And are they trying to trip me up because they asked the same question
So, yeah.
twice, which a lot of them do. I get
Mhm.
that. But it it was they wanted to see if you were consistent in your
Mhm.
answers. I got that.
Mhm.
Um great. I just want to put a shout out to them and to you for being the leaders of this. Now look, we're going to get to this, but I think it's important that our listeners now understand you're offering everything from this very inexpensive $500 individual session, which people could go take the purpose factor assessment, and then you're going to help them through it. So if they say, "Hey, that's all I really want to help with," you're cool with that. And then you offer these corporate programs on the whole opposite end of it, which is like somebody listening right now might think, whoa, this guy's really bright and these courses look great and I can go to Sing Leadership and learn more about this for $20,000, right? Um, Help the listeners understand how they might know which entry point is really right for them. We talked about the Circle book. You can read
Mhm.
first. You can also read his other book, which I'd highly recommend as well. It'll give you an idea of who the man is that's on the other side of the screen. But the reality now is, it's a decision point. Okay. Uh, tell the listeners what they need to know to actually make a proper decision here.
So I'll start with a very simple thing I tell everyone it's not a selling, it's a fact thing. Transformation is a choice, not a chance, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Now, no matter where you're starting from, the whole idea behind the program was, and I love this question because we have designed the journey to meet people exactly where they are. No matter who it is, we have something that will help you transform the life. Uh, Almost all program we start with the purpose factor assessment for a simple reason that it is the best baseline tool,
Yeah.
right? For $500. You can go through the full assessment and have a one-on-one deep dive session to unpack it. And it gives you crystal clear picture of your strengths, your drivers, your purpose alignment. Now, even if you stop there, you walk away with more clarity than most people get their entire life of goal setting, right? Now, from there, if you're ready to go deeper, you can join the 12-week Inner Compass program as an individual or as a couple or as a group. If you're part of team or leading one, we offer corporate cohorts for the same program that go through that. Now, those are more comprehensive and we do a strategic alignment within the teams also. So we look at the team, we ask that leader what. So here's the thing. I mentioned this earlier. You have everybody lives in two paradigm, right? I like this and I want to excel in this. I don't like this. I want to change. Now, when I get in the companies and the corporations, I cannot tell them to leave their job, right?
Right.
So there we start with the intention of the leader in the organization where they want to go,
Okay. Okay.
right? I have the leader, I have the leader themselves take the purpose assessment first so we can know their value, their style, how they want to lead, how they like others leading them. And then from there, we create a whole strategy roadmap for them. Strategy is an overused word, a very simple program twist of that for them.
Well,
Now,
look, you've worked in C-suites, and
Mhm.
all those people out there that are sitting in C-suites, corporate suites, who are at the top. This program, I need the people to hear this. If your company right now is challenged by being aligned, okay, the best investment you could make is in the human capital of the company, which would be to get aligned and to create this alignment. And I really believe the individuals in the C-suite should take the purpose factor assessment, right?
absolutely.
Even if they say, "Oh yeah, I've already done one of those. I've got that." And it's like, "No, you I'm just going to put a commercial in here. No, you haven't done one like this one. You really haven't.
No, it's not.
Once you figure this one out, and it's not like Brian's coming in there to redefine your values and whatever's. He's there to help you align the people. Okay. I don't want you to just put this on the wall and say this company has this set of values and this mission and this purpose. I want you to be able to live this. This has got to be at the soul, the heart and soul of the company. You know, what you do is very soulful. This is soul work.
So
Okay.
one thing I'll plug in there. So I started with a very simple thing, right? Transformation is a choice, not a chance. And the way you said that values and everything on the wall, it is. They are not. We have multiple entry points from books to podcasts to everything. It depends on the context of the people, of where they are and how they want to move forward. But here's the heart of it. I always say, we don't sell change. We are not selling change, but we help you see yourself clearly. And once you do, whether you act on that clarity is up to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we know 90% of all change management programs fail,
Mhm.
right? So if you don't change the people first, what you're actually attempting to change in a way of a process or whatever is going to fail. It's just what it is, right? I mean, how many change management programs have you been through?
Oh
Uh,
my God. Every single position that I've held in last 15, 20 years. And again, see, this is something that what I have done, the 4 decades of mindful practice that I have had, and 20 years of training, 100. So this is another interesting statistic. Somebody did this when I was on their podcast. They went in the history of my work, and it's coming out in first week of June. I love that guy. And he said, Singh, do you realize I went back and looked at and I reached out a few folks. You have had at least 200 people directly reporting to you in different positions.
Mhm.
Somewhere you had 10 people, somewhere you had 5 people. And out of that 200 people, 160 of them are in C-suite.
Mhm.
I said, yeah, because they got trained by me. Again, I trained people without knowing I was training them. And all I did was step back, looked at what I did, and create this whole program. Now, if anybody wants to get in, and again, this is about leaders. If you want to test it out, go on, take the only test. Don't take the review if you don't want to spend 500, but have a clear intention of spending 3 hours to read it without disturbance. And please do this for your sake, for nobody else's sake.
May I add something?
Yes, sir.
I think the assessment factor a, is an epiphany for most people. It's going to be a total
It is.
epiphany. But without some guidance, and even I'm going to say this, like the Circle Up book or your Ascendancy book,
Hmm.
do have something there to reference, to go back to, right? So the reality is we're offering you them to book an appointment with you. So go there and hit the button and book the appointment with you. That is, it's a booking. Is that a pro bono booking, or is that is it something you do initially for free to talk to executives?
Um, Again, I mean, if anybody if anybody is serious enough and reaches out to me on LinkedIn
Okay.
and
Thank
just do a direct message on LinkedIn, um, I have done free sessions, free discovery sessions for at least 30, 35 individuals. My only request is be serious about it.
Yeah, I agree.
My time is very valuable. I would be transforming somebody's life right now if I was not talking to you. But this message is so important to go out that I did not. Same thing I request everybody. I have got somebody I'm doing a free coaching this afternoon.
So I want to
Right.
say that you would be transforming one life. But the fact that you're doing this show and you committed to it, you're going to be transforming a lot more lives. So I just want to make certain that we don't want to say breadth, but I think the depth of the
Depth,
kind of
yes.
people we're reaching will actually resonate with the message that we've brought about here. So look, we're coming to the end of this podcast number 2, and I appreciate the time you've given in talking about the course. And if people want to learn more, go to Sing Leadership. We're going to put the links at the bottom and the end here. Um, there's enough places. As I said, we'll put links to both of Sing's LinkedIn accounts so that you can see what's going on. He did a great post this morning about Circle the book, and I appreciated that. And I actually wrote you a message.
So
So the second thing is that if somebody right now is sitting in the car and they're driving along and they're having a drain time, because we never know when people are listening to this podcast, and feeling disconnected from purpose and things, they just feel lost, they feel lonely again, they feel in a challenge situation. What would you want them to know about what's really possible for them as a result of taking the purpose factor assessment and then diving into your course, whether it's as an individual or it's a team or it's a whole company?
so anybody listening to this, if they are staring at the road through the steering wheel or having a coffee somewhere, whatever. If you think, is this it? I just want you to know it doesn't have to stay this way. Now, two things I will play. One, real transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps. It starts with a breath, just one right now, here, right? So take a deep breath and exhale. See, that is your first step. Now, from there, the journey starts unfolding. Now, you don't have to figure it out today or in one setting. You just have to be willing to take the next right step. And then the program is here. It's not about becoming someone new, it's about coming home, coming to who you really are. And we walk with you through frameworks that bring clarity, micro practices that build confidence, and a community that reminds. So you are not alone. Even if you join as an individual, there is a tribe waiting for you, people who are choosing to live and lead purpose people, people who have been where you are and decided, I'm settling for survival, I'm stepping into alignment, right? So if all of you can do today is breath, that's enough. The second step, come on, join me, and let me show you the path forward.
So
Now,
saying,
further, yes, go ahead.
I want to say that from somebody who's done a podcast show for 18 years and had 1,250 people on,
Mhm.
um, and people can say, well, does Greg mean this? So I'm listening to my audience. I mean this. You are a gem. You're a light
Thank you.
that's shining bright for people to go to. This is not a hype about just let's join this course. You need to know to join this when you're ready, when emotionally you're ready. Singh is, as he said, he's not selling something. Okay. He's basically saying to you, look, when you're ready, let's join because I can change your life. And what I'm saying to my listeners is of the 18 years that I've done this, you are the most sincere, you are the most genuine, You're the most purposeful person that's probably graced our stage in a long time. And I just want to acknowledge you for that. So, any final parting words before we leave our listeners with, like, hey, let's go do a dance?
I mean, I'll go back. I'll go back to two things very simply. Transformation is a choice and not a chance, right? So you have to make a choice to do it. And I just want to have a clarity with everyone who's listening right now. It's not one or the other or nothing, right? So we do curate plans for teams, especially for organizations and teams. We have co-created custom programs. It can be a half a day, just find your focus session. It can be a 3-part leadership series that we do. There's a whole 12-week program that we have. Um, I mean, and
When you say we, do you have facilitators as well that you've trained?
for some of these parts, yes, I have trained.
Okay.
And that's another train the trainer program. The problem with train the trainer program is there's a lot of quality control that I have to invest in
Yeah.
because I want to make sure. So that, but that said, another big thing that's coming out is I have got a request, a sincere request from one from England in London, one from India, and one from Australia, where they want to white label this entire program for their communities locally. I'm going to do a big retreat in India in November for the local people there. But then I'm also again, my point is there are so many different programs that I have, but if you don't know the purpose and your values, please take the assessment and let's sit down and have a chat.
Well,
It's
the
not
cool
about
thing, I
right,
think you said it, is you have a terabyte of information that you put up at that chat.
the chatbot, yeah.
And so here's the point. You've aggregated some very important, valuable content that
Mhm.
you've created through your own personal journey, your inner journey since you're 8, 7 years old. And you're now gifting this to the world. And I just want to tell everybody that it is a gift to have somebody like you on the show. And it's a gift for the people to go sign up for the Inner Compass Journey and this program and start with the first step, which is take the assessment and then let's read your tea leaves. The reality is as a result of that. And
It
Sing,
is.
I want to thank you for being on Inside Personal Growth. It's been an honor having
It's
you
on here.
on the
Thank you.
show for part 2 here about your course called The Inner Compass Journey. Thank you so much. You're a blessing, and thank you.
Thank you. Blessed to be here. Have a good day.